1. When Sugarbeard invited Sourbeard back out to play, he was out for blood and revenge. I knew the instant he picked a female human, not to mention a bard, since he was a master of charisma, that he was playing to make a mockery of women. This could not have turned out better. Sugarbeard, as it turned out, did have an incredibly fast imagination. He quickly explained our world, one in which a plague had swept through and population numbers were so low in most of the world that an economy couldn't be effectively run. Races were celestial, demonic, or fey blood were susceptible. The result of surviving this plague for females was infertility. A powerful sorcerer discovered a way to replenish the population of some of these races by magically mixing the blood of a male and female of the same race and implanting it in the womb of a surrogate mother of another species. We received a request from the government to safely deliver 2 dark elves, Mel's female character and my male character, to this sorcerer. I really liked Sugarbeard's DM style. He gave you free range, and he let you try nearly anything as long as you rolled for it. Occasionally, he'd embellish a little too much, or take his NPCs a little too seriously. In general, though, he kept it fun. Of course, it kicked off with Sourbeard complaining about how unfair that the lesbians were getting special treatment, to which Mel replied quickly, "Oh no, I love getting dick too much." Then it started. I was very thankful Mel was thick-skinned and amused by Sourbeard's rage, because it could have become very ugly very quick.
"Look at that,"
huffed Sourbeard.
"You have a pussy, even a fake pussy, and every man is helpless for you. But even a man-woman like you only wants chads to order around, and other helpless ones who aren't good enough for you."
Mel gestured to Kent, Hans, and Sugarbeard. "Ah yes, why I surround myself with only chads? Dick is my only desire when it comes to company. I don't care about brains." This went right over Sourbeard's head somehow. He then decided to raid the town for women and men for his character to sleep with. Of course, because he made the character out of bitterness, he went all for power and not for strategy of the class. So his character had very low charisma. Sugarbeard made him roll for STDs each time. His character got 3 in one night after rolling a 1, after only successfully sleeping with one of his 5 failed targets. However, his character's dirty attitude spread like wildfire in town, and she was soon repeatedly slut-shamed and given bad prices by every merchant, unless they got something on the side, if you know what I mean. That's when Sourbeard began posting it wasn't fair to his character, so Sugarbeard would give him the opportunity to haggle, and the low charisma thing really wasn't working out. Finally, Sugarbeard got frustrated enough to stop enjoying the easy life as a female and started venturing to see the sorcerer. We got into several battles along the way where he tried to charge in himself and attack enemies. Yes, as a bard, he was quickly defeated each time. Luckily, Hans, as our healer, was extremely patient and would heal Sourbeard's character after the rest of us had taken out the enemies. Sourbeard declared each time he went down,
"Support classes are so useless."
Then we reached the sorcerer, who lived in a very secluded tower. The sorcerer agreed to mix the blood of Mel and my characters, but a surrogate was needed. The default responsibility was obvious. It had to go through the only other female character in the party. Sugarbeard looked Sourbeard dead in the eye and said in the sorcerer's voice, "It's your only and greatest duty, as a woman." Finally, Sourbeard learned this experience was meant to be a lesson for him. He broke out swearing and screamed,
"You Chad backstabber!"
at Sourbeard and fled to his room. We cleared out pretty quick after. Hans and Kent went to grab some fast food. Mel and I left together. I had to know more. I asked how she got to know Sugarbeard. "Well, being co-workers did it," she admitted. "But if you want to know why we're friends, he reminds me of my little brother who got bullied the hell out of because of me." She looked very suddenly sad but composed herself. My little brother was the only one who supported me in my little town and my conservative family. But he wasn't thick-skinned like me. He got hurt bad. Eventually, he got that shy but combative about too many things and socially broken functioning that Sugar has. I haven't seen my brother since my rich gay uncle helped me with surgery. Finally cut me off like they cut him off. I gave Mel a hug. That's awful, I managed. But I can already see that Sugarbeard sees you like family. Hell, I'd like you as a family member too. Mel and I exchanged numbers, and shortly after I saved her as a contact. I got a text from Sugarbeard. Can we go on a walk? It was vague and mysterious, but I texted back. Sure, meet me in the lobby. Sugarbeard was kind of a mess after the ordeal. He seemed to regret the whole thing with Sourbeard. His voice was shaking the whole time, and his voice broke embarrassingly several times as he laid his feelings on me. Luckily, it was really late, so almost no one was roaming around campus. I've never voluntarily tried to anger someone before, he admitted. I feel like shit now. He was treating you pretty badly from what I saw. You shouldn't feel bad for showing him what his words feel like. I feel like I made him worse over the last month. Sugarbeard's shoulders fell, and he suddenly looked a great deal smaller than usual. I don't see how you could have been responsible for his attitude. I found this community online I thought would help him. I struggled to get him to speak more. Like what, the Reddit incels community? There was a long silence. No. I found him a fetish community with women who prefer men who aren't conventionally attractive. They even refer to guys like me and him as gross. It should have been a red flag. Ah, that's who Kent was talking about. Suddenly, Sugarbeard started to word vomit what was on his mind, which made me want to vomit. He got really into this degrading feeder dominatrix woman. She's really into owning him. She makes him eat outrageous amounts daily and then masturbate on webcam for her. And they're so loud. It's driving me insane. Now he just thinks of women, even more one-dimensionally, as these creatures that only care about sex. His eyes widened like he couldn't believe he had just gotten that all out. I vomited in my mouth. Look, I don't kink shame, but the idea of Sourbeard being involved in anyone's kinks was too much. The only thing that made me pull myself together and out of that revolted thought stream is that when we went under the next light in our walk, I saw Sugarbeard's eyes look a little watery. I lost another friend, he murmured. His face went blank, and I let instinct take over and try to hold him. He pushed me away. No, he said with sudden sharpness. Your body just reminds me I'll never be any closer than that. He's right. I'll never have a woman. He's right. My mom was right. Romance is a fantasy. He turned on his heel and walked away, leaving me confused in the dark night. 2. So some years ago, from early 2013 to late 2015, I lived in a pretty well-known, in my country at least, home for teenagers with autism. For when living at home just doesn't work anymore. I'm not going to completely describe my mental health, but let's just say that I had explosive anger issues. These almost 3 years were absolutely awful, and a lot of shit happened there. There were also an enormous amount of, you guessed it, neckbeards. So for this specific story, we go to the town of Oosterbeek, famous for being a key location during World War II. The holier-than-thou smug people and the autism hellhole. I was about 18 or 19 at the time, and in the summer of 2015 still an angry dick, but not as bad as when I first got there. An angry, depressed sack of fat starving for a fun weekly activity. One of the many cool counselors at that place was Cool Counselor. They shared an interest with most of the teenagers living there, like D&D, gaming. He wasn't the only good counselor, but they were few. Stinkbeard was one of the many neckbeards, but by far the stinkiest. Like most neckbeards, showering was optional for him. Even in the hot summer, when his extreme body fat, worse than mine, made him sweat like a chunk of cheap cheese left out of the fridge for 2 days. On one fateful spring morning, Cool Counselor came up with the idea of organizing a weekly D&D group, which my depressed ass would immediately sign up for, along with Stinkbeard, who was on his 7th slice of chocolate sprinkle-loafed bread. The D&D games themselves were pretty fun. Not a lot of cringe happened during sessions. It was what happened between sessions that was the problem. When it was time for the first session, everyone was on time, with me and Cool Counselor being early. Stinkbeard would not show up himself, so me and Cool Counselor went to check on him. We knocked on the door of his room, the smell already smellable through the closed door, but there was no answer. Cool Counselor, being a counselor and being responsible for the teens, would open the door to check if something was wrong. It was then that we were both punched in the face by a terrible smell of sweat, farts, rotting food, and dried-up guy fluids. And there he was, the stinkiest of beards, completely naked except for his headphones. His ding-dong the size of a thumb in one hand. Well, you get the idea. When Sourbeard would finally appear for our session, everyone looked at him with giant grins holding in the laughter. "Hey guys, sorry I'm late. What did I miss?" Cool Counselor, obviously knowing the answer to his question. "Why are you late, Stinkbeard? We were all waiting for you." "I was watching a movie and forgot about the time." "Well, did you at least wash your hands? We want to start." I know it sounds like a ludicrous thing to say, but yes, everyone burst out laughing. The rest of the day went pretty smoothly. 3. Hello all, this is the 4th installment of the Brotherbeard saga, and this one is a doozy. I still love Brotherbeard to this day. However, the following events almost made me cut my ties with him. If he pursued further, it would have. Let me start with some backstory. I was married first to a girl that my best friend Zephyr introduced me to. I was desperate and thought no one would be interested in me, so I jumped the first ship that sailed my way. I don't want to call her my ex throughout the story. The letter X deserves better. No, I think we'll just call her Regine. So, Regine and I got married when we were young, 19 and 18 respectively. At first it was love. I cared about her like no other. However, Brotherbeard and my younger brother made things hard for me. I had friends that lived across the street from me that I liked to hang out with from time to time. A guy that was a few years younger than me and a girl a couple of years older than me. One thing I hate is when people suspect that you're doing the naughty polka all because you're a guy and a girl. Just to let you know, I tried to have Regine come with me to get out of the house and hang out with people her age. But no, she just wanted to lay around in bed, which gave her ample time to hear my brothers say, "Knowing him? Yeah, knowing him? As in I just have sloppy sex with anything that has a hole? I hope you know, Brotherbeard and younger brother, that I lost my virginity to Regine and stayed faithful to her until we divorced." Sorry, anyways, from time to time, while we were sitting in the living room, watching TV or playing games, by the way, yes, we did still live with my family for a time, I would catch Brotherbeard staring at Regine's lap. By the time I figured what he was looking at, he looked away. I couldn't confront him about it because I didn't have proof and he would just deny it. One time I had friends from across the street over with Zephyr and JJ, and the street friends brought a friend each as well. We were all sitting in the living room, both brothers included, and we grew bored of the TV. We started to share embarrassing stories of when we played Spin the Bottle and Truth or Dare. My embarrassing story was that I never played either of those, so the street friends suggested we play them. We figured that Spin the Bottle would be inappropriate, so we decided on Truth or Dare. The rules for the dare were simple. A. No self-harm or harming others. B. Cannot force someone to do something to other people. C. It has to be humanly possible. And D. No nudity. Thankfully, we were all adults, so the truth questions weren't dumb or juvenile. So we were having fun, passing the questions around. Some people were dared to eat gross stuff. JJ even accepted rolling in the snow in his underwear. Hey, he okayed it. It harmed no one, cause he was good looking, and he had his naughty bits covered. Everybody had the foresight to not ask Brother Beard any personal questions like, do you have a crush on someone, or have you dated a girl, or dared him to do anything that would make anyone gag. So we were wrapping things up when Brother Beard started whimpering. Yes, he whimpers like a dog and thinks it's cute. Everyone ignored him, so he eventually blurted out, I was waiting for someone to dare me to sit here naked, or to make me wake out with Regine. I spun around to him so fast and firmly told him that breaks almost all of our rules. It would be causing great discomfort to my wife and great pain to you. Also, you sitting naked there would hurt everyone in the room. He looked at me hurt.
Why would I get hurt?
Because, Brother Beard, I would have punched you in your jaw. That is not the worst of what he has done, though. Fast forward a few years. I'm living in my own home at this point with 2 kids from Regine. It had been a while since I have seen Brother Beard, so I invited him over to play some Magic the Gathering. Things were going well until Regine walked by. He didn't hide the fact that he watched their ass the whole way through the room. He even did a little, I firmly told him off. His response was,
What? She has nice birthing hips.
What the fuck, birthing hips? I hate it when people say that. What are you, just thinking about her shooting babies out of there? Is that what women are to you, baby machines? And this is my wife, your sister-in-law. Sister! Would you look at your own sister and think, fuck, what great birthing hips she has? Although the answer would probably be yes, given that you had a fantasy about dating the ghost of your fictional twin sister that died at birth. I stood up and pointed at the door, saying, pack your cards and leave. He started to protest, but I snapped my fingers and pointed again. He stomped out of the house and tried to slam the door. It bounced. Regine came into the room and asked what happened. I told her about his comment, and she physically shivered and promptly went to take a long shower. After our divorce, I heard a story from Regine. She had complained that Brother Beard had approached her at some point and said, if you ever leave, Reluche, I will hurt you. Now, this is not like him. What I think he said was, if you ever leave, Reluche, you'll be free to date me. And she just figured it was the same thing. 4. For reference, I was a 19-year-old Asian male, with Beard, a 32-year-old white male, as a roommate. Beard was a really, really big guy all around. He was about 5'11", probably 300 pounds, or at least close to that, had a long, unkempt beard, and equally long, greasy hair. I saw him around campus all the time prior to that, but we never really crossed paths until that semester. My first day upon moving into my new dorm, I was hit with a stench that I would describe as a cross between a hamper full of dirty, sweaty football uniforms, garlic-infused farts, and garbage. Beard wasn't even in the room at the time, but I smelled him long before I actually had to sit down with him. When we finally did meet, he seemed like a fairly decent enough guy, albeit a bit awkward, and told me his entire life story, and why he, a 32-year-old, was back in college. He also overshared a lot of stuff about his personal life, like his sexual history and other weird, unnecessary details. In passing, he mentioned that he has sleep apnea, almost certainly as a consequence of his extreme obesity. But I never really thought that much of it until that night, where it was practically impossible to sleep as he snored like an actual chainsaw. But it got worse. He didn't shower that night, despite the fact that we both lived in Hawaii, probably the most humid state in the Union, and he didn't even change his clothes. When I pointed that out, he shrugged it off and said, "It's just what I do." Aside from his disgusting tendencies, he also had no sense of common courtesy. He always had his monitor dialed up to the highest brightness setting, even when I was clearly trying to sleep, and would sometimes fall asleep at his computer like that. Waking him up was a near impossible feat, although part of me does suspect he was just ignoring me. Beard's most revolting habit was, by far, this tendency to sometimes sleep nearly completely naked. The image of his horrifically obese, hairy, blob-like body in the buff is something that I'll never be able to unsee. I tried on multiple occasions to ask him not to do the gross, disgusting, and inconsiderate shit he always did in the nicest way possible. But my protests always fell on deaf ears. In the end, all I could do was beg my RA to allow me to switch rooms before I killed him. I don't know what he's been up to since then, but to date, I have never met a more thoroughly repulsive person in my life. I pity anyone unfortunate enough to have to share a space with him. 5. So some background. I graduated college, and because I had trouble finding a job, I joined the army as an infantryman. And for 3 to 4 years, I didn't have a lot of contact with my old friends from high school. Most of them got regular jobs after high school, where me and the Neckbeard I'll talk about in the story went to college. But the one thing we always used to do was play D&D after school. So that was the one thing we all agreed was awesome. Well, after I finished my enlistment in the army, I moved back to my hometown and I ended up getting the same job at the company some of my old friends worked for. And we decided for old time's sake that we were going to have a D&D session. For the purpose of this story, we'll call my former friend Bronybeard. Hey guys, let's invite Bronybeard over. You haven't seen him in a while. We're all excited because we're getting the party back together. We invite Bronybeard and it all seems fine. He came in with a t-shirt with Twilight sparkle on it from My Little Pony, which we're not fans of, but we don't mind if people are into it. But he also seems different from when we last met him. He's got the Jeffrey Dahmer glasses, he smells like 5 days of BO, and he's still got the acne of a 16-year-old. Now, I heard about Neckbeard traits, but this seemed far too good to be true. So the night goes on, and he seems quieter than he used to be. But the D&D session goes well, then Bronybeard offers to have D&D at his place. We all agree and set the date for the next session. Well, the day comes and we all head over after work to Bronybeard's house. It looks normal enough, nothing suspicious. But what we saw still haunts me to this day. We enter his living room and we see the tables set up for D&D, but what caught my attention out of the corner of my eye was the display case he had. Full of Bad Dragon dildos and My Little Pony figures. Now I figured, okay, I'm just imagining things, there's no way that display case is full of that. So I close my eyes really quick, like a little kid trying to pretend there's no monsters in the dark. Only in this case, there were monsters in the dark. And I opened my eyes, and sure enough, the amount of animal dildos that was on display just out in the open. I turn to Bronybeard and say, dude, why do you have those on display? At first I thought he was going to freak out and try to cover it up. Instead he just smiled and said, because I like them. Which, look, I try to be tolerant of all people's lifestyles, but some things are just too weird. If you want to have a porn collection, you don't keep it out in the open. To quote John Caparulo, you hide it in the shame drawer. So we try to enjoy this D&D session, but it's hard to enjoy it with those giant dildos just in the room with us. So now it was our turns to be the quiet ones. Needless to say, when we finished the session, we agreed to have it at my house next. But then Bronybeard didn't show up the next few sessions, but we remembered we were still friends with his ex-girlfriend, so we invited her instead. Well, we found out the reason why they broke up. Turns out he was really trying to pressure her into doing things she wasn't comfortable with. And when she refused, he cheated on her with both men and women. But when she dumped him, he only got worse. Now here's the weirdest part. Bronybeard told his own mother that the reason why she broke up with him was because of his taste in porn. And he told his own mother about the kind he was into. Needless to say, we never invited Bronybeard back. And last we heard, he moved to Colorado with his fuckboy. I have no idea what happened to him in college that turned him weird. I mean, college was a weird time for me too, but I was a shut-in who just studied. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild. Yes, it's a new one this time. 73. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you have a story yourself or any other correspondence you need to send me, you can send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That's kingofthecities@gmail.com. And you can find that in the description of pretty much every video. A big thank you to the Hellfreezer community for keeping me company during this recording session. I live streamed this one, as I like to do when I can. So a big thank you and a big shout out to all you lovely people. So that's all of you, if you've ever popped into a chat. If you haven't, you're allowed to. You're welcome anytime you want. Unless I'm not streaming, in which case it would be very difficult to do so. Okay, let's see. Let's just move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Okay, as there were a lot of RPGs mentioned in this video, and I'm not a nerd, so I wouldn't know about that sort of thing. I'm like totally cool and stuff. Don't look at me like that. But for you nerds out there, what are the kind of games that you like to play? Do you like D&D? Do you enjoy like the magic cards and such? Or maybe you're into Pathfinder, that sort of thing. Let me know what your favorite is, or maybe it's one I've never heard of. Those are the only ones I really know. There was one that was kind of a futuristic thing I heard about, but anyway. Let me know what your favorites are in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.